Hey Internet, I finally have done it and created my first YouTube video. For this first video, I want to talk about my journey on how I came to where I am today. Kind of a big ego thinking you want to hear my story. I think the best place to start would be before Trump, when my wife and I lived in a very progressive part of the world. It was okay to be subtly racist towards white people here, but I really didn't care. In fact, I adopted the lingo and even called myself a Hallie. I considered myself a progressive at the time and voted for Bernie in the primaries. I religiously watched The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, transitioned to Trevor Noah, and started watching Samantha Bee, John Oliver, and every late night host that bashed Trump. During the election cycle, I would scan through CNN, The Young Turks, Salon, Vox, Huffington Post, you name it, to find articles bashing Trump and throwing fear, explaining that a Trump presidency would cause a global catastrophe. I remember on election night saying to my wife, if Trump doesn't win, I am afraid there might be violence on the street the next day. And I made sure our guns were in order if major civil disobedience were to break out in the morning. This just shows how much influence the mainstream media had on my mind. And to be fair, Trump didn't help much with that either. But the funny thing was, the exact opposite happened, and there was protest and violence from the losing side.
Making news in America this morning, breaking overnight, people filling the streets in America's cities, protesting President-elect Donald Trump.
Crowds set fires, blocked freeways, and gathered at Trump's buildings all across the country.
I am not saying that this wouldn't have happened if Hillary won, but what actually transpired went against what the mainstream media predetermined. But let's back up a bit. Before the election, I was already watching a lot of YouTube, in particular the atheist community. Not Steve Shives though, thank God. I mean, dude already blocked me on Twitter and I've never tweeted him once. I mean, I might have liked somebody that he doesn't, but damn. Actually, this is a pretty proud moment of my life right here, because I didn't expect to get this until a few years down the road. I considered myself a deist after leaving college. And it wasn't until, well, sadly watching part 1 in the movie Zeitgeist that I started to question even the simplest beliefs in a higher power. I will dedicate another video to why I stopped believing in conspiracy theories another time, or how I dug myself out of that fucking rabbit hole. Jesus fucking Christ. The parallels between religion were made clear to me, and Bill Maher also brought this up in his documentary Religiosity. Shortly after, I remember YouTubing atheism and coming across Skepticon, and hearing voices like Richard Carrier questioning the existence of historical Jesus for the first time. And from there, my religious skepticism exploded. I read the religious texts of the major religions, and most importantly, I found the 4 horsemen on YouTube, and I include Ayaan Hirsi Ali as the 5th. I started with their SmackDown videos, especially Hitch Slap, which of course is biased but amazing.
What if God actually exists, sir? Would he not have been good to you?
No.
And for the record, Christopher Hitchens is a personal hero of mine, and it saddens me that he's not around to make sense of all the crazy going on today. To fix this bias, I started watching full-on debates. Understanding your opponent's argument is a staple in bettering your position, and if you're open and care about the truth, it could actually change your own mind. I then read as many books on this subject as possible. All of this helped me feel confident enough to defend my position. I found many other YouTubers who helped bring reason and rationality in the God debate. I felt like I had a pretty good handle on the religious debate, but then I watched Anthony Magnabosco's The We Are Doing It Wrong presentation, where he explains the Socratic method and street epistemology. This was a much more personal and non-threatening way to engage with people about religion, and has a decent success rate in getting people to change their minds, if only by a little. Not only that, but this brought humanity to the person you were talking to, and helped extinguish the anger I had towards religion. He pointed me to Peter Boghossian's book, A Manual for Creating Atheists, and this strengthened my use of the Socratic method. Essentially, just ask questions that get the individual to think, instead of barraging them with facts that makes them uncomfortable and shuts them down towards having a conversation, i.e., let them come to the facts on their own terms. I see the Socratic method, using facts, or what have you, as tools in the toolbox that can be used in discussions depending on the job. Okay, fast forward a little. The first time I noticed the disconnect on the left/progressive side of reasoning was, and I'm sure like many others, the Ben Affleck, Sam Harris, and Bill Maher exchange.
Well, no,
it really isn't.
I'm not denying that certain people are bigoted against Muslims as people.
Right.
And that's a problem.
Big of you.
But
why are you so hostile about this concept?
It's gross. It's racist.
It's not. But it's so not.
It's like.
Hey Yahweh. Yes. Go fuck yourself. Hey Allah. Yes. Go fuck yourself.
You gonna get him out of here? You gonna push the crowd back?
And shortly after, Richard Dawkins, another four horseman that I respected, got heat for retweeting a cartoon that compared radical Islam with radical feminism. I considered myself a feminist at the time, and this threw a curveball at me. I didn't understand the outrage towards Richard Dawkins and why he was no longer allowed to speak at a conference because of this. Why is it okay for some feminists to be radical and to deplatform someone for something so minimal? Around the same time, Gamergate was underway. My chronology might be a little fucked. Let's chalk that up to the long-term effects of marijuana, which is now a racist term. How about that? Gamergate started as bad journalistic ethics in gaming magazines. Essentially, the publication would receive money from gaming companies to give exceptional scores/promotions. A few toxic pizza shits caused this movement to get hijacked by radical feminists, and the narrative was then made out to be that all gamers are misogynistic/sexist. Real issues were quashed, and the radicalist movement was trying to gain control of the gaming community. Fortunately, gamers love their art form/entertainment/escape from reality so much that we didn't budge.
Those who fail in the Man Festival must receive as a punishment the winner's full manhood.
Manhood?
Oh, you don't mean... gross. Exactly. That is correct.
So, great question. If you win... And if I win?
Well now. You passed the physical. Now it's time for the mental test. The Man Festival must end with the final expression of love between two men.
Isn't it beautiful? Love comes in so many different shapes.
I'm not into that shit.
Again, another example of this madness that was right in front of my eyes, but I couldn't see the bullshit from within my progressive bubble. Alright, post-election. My wife and I have been living in a different state for a few months now. One that leans blue, but is closer to 50-50. I'm trying to remember the exact moment when it happened. I can't pinpoint it. It might have been finding the Rubin Report. His direct message, "The free speech wars have begun," is one of the first videos I shared with others back in early February. So I imagine it was shortly before this that my political awakening was beginning. And like my atheist awakening, I am so fucking woke! This too exploded. I started listening to new voices and ideas. It's stupid that I have to give this disclaimer, but I agree 100% with everything every one of them has said, especially the parts that contradict with each other. And funny enough, some old voices were in the mix, including Armored Skeptic and TJ Kirk. The progressives have been exposed for what they are. I started to notice the progressive indoctrination in almost everything I used to watch. I had to stop watching The Daily Show, a show I watched since Craig Kilborn was the host. Samantha Bee turned out to be sexist and racist towards white men.
You know, I don't say this very often, but I should have hired more white dudes. And once you dust for fingerprints, it's pretty clear who ruined America. White people. White people! This is the worst thing. 63% of white men said, if I can't be in charge, burn it down, which surprised exactly no one. And a majority of white women, faced with the historic choice between the first female president and a vial of weaponized testosterone, said, I'll take option B. I just don't like her. Let's get off the floor and get busy, especially you white women. We got some karma to work off. Because unlike other Americans struggling with job insecurity, declining wages, addiction, anxiety, and shitty schools, white people also have to cope with discrimination. So we're dedicating a new segment to the overlooked tribulations of white Americans.
Nobody knows the trouble I've seen.
Oh, what was it? Wait, don't tell me. Was it Peckerwood, Ofe, Cracker, Honky, Guaylo, Gringo, Hillbilly, Redneck, Hick, Trailer Trash, 8 Mile, Bubba, Blowfish, Gabacho, Wonder Bread, Casper, Washisho, Hayseed, or Guero?
And the late night talk shows echoed the same opinions. Similar to what Ronald Reagan said, I didn't leave the left left me. The new ideas were using rational arguments and reason, and a community already existed. Cassie J's Red Pill movie exposed the double standards of the feminist movement and helped with my own Red Pill moment. This community was incredible, but what cemented the idea was actual footage of the progressives acting outrageous.
Humongous what? Humongous what? This person just spoke to me in a sexually harassing way.
I did not.
Yeah, he did. He said, do you know what my name is? And I said, what? And he said, humongous. What? Yeah. This person just sexually harassed me.
I said I'm humongous.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Humongous what?
Humongous.
Footage from universities was appalling.
You're saying that I can't have a hairstyle because of your culture? Why?
Because it's my culture. You know what bothers me.
Do you know it was in Egyptian culture? Are you Egyptian? Nah, Brad, you're not.
Are you Egyptian?
No, but it doesn't matter.
Wait, where's Egypt? Tell me.
You know what, girl?
Where's Egypt?
Dude, girl, you have no right to tell me what I can wear. Huh?
Where's Egypt?
Yo, girl, stop touching me right now.
Yo, girl, stop touching me right now. Come back.
Get off of me.
Come back. You put your hands on me, no word.
Like, you're gonna make some shit because of what the hair I have? That's no reason, yo. I don't need your disrespect. I don't need your disrespect.
Why are you filming this?
Just for everyone's safety.
Exception is because other people have rights too, not just you.
Walk away. Walk away. He doesn't deserve to be listened to. He doesn't deserve to be listened to.
To create an unsafe space here for
I
all.
did not.
Stay quiet. For all Stillman students. You understand that? As your position as master, it is your job to create a place of comfort and home for the students that live in Stillman. You have not done that. By sending out that email, that goes against your position as master. Do you understand that? Then
No, I don't agree with that.
Then why the fuck did you accept the position?
Because
Who
I have
the
a
fuck hired you?
I have a different
You
vision
should
than you.
step down. If that is what you think about being a master, you should step down.
Ho ho! These racist teachers have got to go. Hey hey! Ho ho! These racist teachers have got to go. Hey hey! Black power! Black power! Black power! Black power!
Let me remind y'all, that's how whiteness works. Whiteness is the most violent fucking system to ever breathe.
Fuck you, George. We don't want to hear a goddamn thing you have to say. You
Very
talk
nice.
so fucking much. No, you shut the fuck up. No.
The voices of students of color.
Some of our concerns. Why is Professor shaking
Is this a filibuster?
when I
How about you respect somebody talking? How about you white students shut up?
Yeah, you fucking take so much space.
Exactly.
You listen. You have to listen, okay? Listen to us, okay? You talked so much already, okay? So listen.
Learn about our communities if you want to speak over all of us. You really want to silence all our voices.
Are you trying to silence us right now? Is that what you're trying to do?
I'm trying to take my test.
Exactly. Well, where would you
We're trying to live our lives.
Exactly.
Calm down. White boy with privilege.
Thank Yahweh that I graduated in 2011, right as this madness was starting to establish itself at the universities. Alright, so the 90s and the early 2000s gave me good reason to distance myself from the right. I recall Congress and people who called themselves Republicans trying to silence the free speech of musicians such as Eminem and Marilyn Manson. Them damn raps and metals.
You will hear testimony today about the impact that violent and antisocial music has on its listeners.
I've said from the beginning that this music is drug-driven, race-driven, and violence-driven.
Recent best-selling albums have included graphic descriptions of murder, torture, and rape.
It appears that this music has a particular attraction to kids who have problems, troubled kids. They're alienated from school, they're alienated from their parents, they tend to engage in more reckless behaviors like marijuana use, cocaine use, casual sex.
I think we're all so shocked at that, and I want to join in the chorus of outrage.
We now have Ms. Lynn Cheney.
I have lately been very disturbed by the lyrics of the rap singer Eminem.
In your records, you use a lot of F word, a lot of swearing, and this and that. Again, is it necessary to get your message across to use that kind of language? Is it you use the sexual imagery, you use the shocking physical appearance, you've done some bizarre things on stage, and you use profanity. All of that necessary?
Sometimes. I think sometimes when you're making a point, I don't think that my lyrics are overlaced with profanity because I myself don't speak using a lot of profanity in normal conversation, but I think when you're making something aggressive and you need to get a point across, if you're angry, sometimes profanity is necessary. It's better to use a curse word than to hurt somebody.
And today we see yet again politicians on the right blaming video games after another school shooting. Well, to be fair, the left are just as fucking stupid. Recently, the progressives have done the same thing for me on the left. Some things that the right used to be against are now acceptable, but there will always remain a parasite in the right's voting base that wants to control our social liberties. But that being said, at this moment in time, the progressives scare me more, as they have almost complete control of the broadcasting of information, university culture, and are slowly creeping into the HR departments at the workplace. So here I am, somewhere in the center, looking objectively for the truth and the right path. At times I feel very lost and alone in my personal life. The threat of being called a racist and sexist for disagreeing on certain political ideas is real and unavoidable. I have to thank Trump, although his ego greatly concerns me. I don't know if I would have had this political awakening if Hillary would have won. The exposure of the corruption from the left has been brought to the forefront, and we may have never truly known the extent of Hillary victory. So that was my 2017. I would have never predicted this outcome, even months before the year began. I have to thank my wife. She was beside me the whole way. Sometimes the arguments would get a little heated, but we always listened to each other, and it always made us better people. Thank you for listening to my story, and you can find me on Twitter at reasonabledrunk. I have been inspired to keep the discussion going by creating videos about the things I love, like big ideas, video games, religion, comedy, having drunken discussion with friends and family, and much more. And as time goes on, I hope to get better at making these videos. I apologize for the lack of talent in this shit show. It is much harder than it looks. Reasonable Drunk out. Man, that was going to be a good one. Fuck. Jesus fucking Christ, fuck you.